Previously, we took our FRM customers and added some color, both to the text and the background, to show that your forms do not have to be Microsoft Grey. But more mechanically, you may wish to add other fields that are currently in your table, but not in this particular form. Now that may be because down the line, someone decides you actually need to see and edit another value, or it may be that you forgot to add it when you created the form, so you need to add it subsequently. So we're going to take the FRM customers again. We need to go into Design View. Now in Design View, you get your form design tools where we have Design, Arrange and Format. On the Design sub-ribbon, effectively, we have this option for adding existing fields. If we give that a click, it brings up all the fields that are currently in the table that sits behind this form. So in our TBL customers table. Now I know I haven't got all the fields. I've got first name, last name, some of the address fields, marital status, total number of children, but I don't have the ID of the person, which would be quite useful. If I want to add another field to my form, I simply drag it from the field list. So I go across here and click on CID, drag that into my form and drop it in some useful place really. Now where I drop it, which is here where I'm heading for, it puts the data control there. So you can see it puts CID there, and it puts the label over here at a distance it feels is appropriate. Now obviously that distance isn't aligned to my labels here, but we can resolve that shortly. If it hasn't dropped it quite in the right place, I can move it around a little bit, or I can use some of my alignment options that we're going to look at shortly. Perhaps there are other fields I would want to add, such as, for example, the postcode to the address field. Now, in order to put it in the correct place, I need to move down every field under the city. So if I go into the margin here, I can click and drag, just like I did on the top ruler earlier, and anything that is just crossed by that area will be selected. But when I let go, it actually selects all the right fields. I can then move down these fields and go across to grab the postcode and drag that into the space. So where I let go is where it will put the data, and the label appears over on the left. Again, it's not aligned with the current fields, but you'll see it is pretty much dropped in the same place as CID. So that's the ability to add fields in from your data. If, however, it's the other way around, you want to take a field off the form, that is much easier. You simply select the field, perhaps this married one I'm not interested anymore, and delete on the keyboard and the field's gone. Obviously a space is left, so you would need to move things up to keep things tidy. Perhaps I would move total children up. I'm going to save this form with a different name, so I go to File and Save As, making sure I choose Save Object As, and then Save Object As, Save As, lots of clicking involved, and it wants to call it Copy of FRM Customers, not very sensible. I'm going to call it FRM Customers V2. Okay. That just keeps it separate from the original FRM Customers form. Now, having added these new fields, I'm going to need to do a little bit of alignment to keep things neat. I need the labels to be aligned with the other labels. So the first thing to do is select all the labels. By doing that, that also selects the header, so I can click to deselect. Now, I don't actually need to do that to be able to align these labels across. I'll just need to select both of those and then one other. But having them all selected means I can put them all together just in case they are slightly out of place. So with all my labels selected, I then go to the Form Design Tools ribbon and the Arrange sub-ribbon. Over on the left here is an Align option, and in the drop-down you can see I have left, right, top or bottom. Well, I would like all of my controls to be aligned to the left, please, and they'll all go to the furthest left. So if I say left, effectively the CID and the postcode jump to the left because the other items were already aligned. Now, the actual fields themselves aren't the same width. The postcode and the CID aren't the same width. They're not using the same size box. Now, that's not important unless you use borders, because if I view this form, you can see it doesn't matter that the box isn't the same size. Nobody notices, except if you have borders. Then they notice the boxes aren't the same size. So if you want these rectangles to be the same size, while they're selected, we could do that by going to Arrange, Size/Space, and in the drop down, we want them to be the same size as the widest one. One click, and they're all the same width. That way, if you do decide to add a border in the future, they are all the same size and they look consistent. Now, just to make sure that my new fields, CID and postal code, are left aligned correctly, I'm going to select all of my control sources here. That has them all selected, align left, and they weren't quite, because you saw they did a little movement, so they weren't quite aligned. So that's got all my fields nicely left aligned, but you can just see that the gap is not consistent. There's no gap below postal code and total purchase, and there is a bigger gap between city and postal code. Just to make my form neater, I can make the gaps exactly the same. So let's highlight all of the fields this way on. So it picks up all of the fields and their labels. Go up to size and space, and you can see there is a spacing option where I can say equal horizontally, increase the horizontal, decrease the horizontal, equal vertical. That's the option I'm after. The space between each of the items vertically needs to be the same. So click, and they get distributed so that the gap is exactly the same. So when I view my form, it looks very neat. These extra fields don't look like I've added them. CID and the postal code looks like they were due to be there. The labels are nicely left aligned. The controls for the data are nicely left aligned. And the gap between each of my data items is the same. So all of those options are done in design or layout by selecting the correct items, going to arrange and either align for controlling the alignment, and size and space for controlling the size and the spacing between objects, either vertically or horizontally.